Hello, welcome to Sean Snowday Presents. We are back with Misty. Hey, we're going to be going over virtual events. And what I want to kind of talk about today is creating connection in virtual events because it's so different. Like you can't see me from my waist down. And so I have to be very animated up here. But before we get into it, are you excited about the holidays?
Me? I am. As the kids get older,
Yeah.
things change a little bit. But yes, I enjoy the holidays.
Yeah. Okay. That was just a little distraction. Now, with the virtual events, um, first of all, how long have you been using Zoom?
Oh, I was like one of their very first users at probably about 11, 12 years.
Yeah. The thing is, that there's a thing from digital marketer, which means, you excite the person after you have a call with them. So my thing was I would tell them about Zoom
Yeah.
because what there was GoToMeeting, which was $20 a month,
Yep.
720p. Now I'm gonna get a little nerdy here, but it's $20 a month, 720p, and you couldn't record. Zoom was free. You could record at 1080p, but at 40 minutes it cut you off.
Right. Yeah,
But
for the free version.
you
Yeah.
could still make videos and download them, you
Yep.
know, and record them and go to meeting. Like people don't even know what go to webinar is. Zoom is now a verb, like Google is a verb,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know? And so then what happened was everybody started getting to know about Zoom. So then I figured out the green screen. If you look at my old video, I don't know if you know India. She was my India Kern. She was my partner for a while.
Oh no.
And so she would bust up because my old videos, this was when Zoom was still really early, and when we went 1080p, a lot of the newscasters got really mad because you could see their nose hairs and all their blemishes and everything.
Right.
Well, I didn't know how to put on makeup, but it made me look like I had one eyebrow and like all these little. So I'd go the Dollar Tree, which was right by my grocery store, because I'm not going to go to Sephora and buy makeup. So and I and she's like, Sean, you do not know how to put on makeup. But my point is in the early days of virtual events, like it just showed everything, all the blemishes, all the little pimples and the nose hairs, and then you had to get the lighting right.
Yeah.
And if you didn't have the lighting right for the green screen, you would have all this stuff dancing behind you. So fast forward to today, everyone's using Zoom. Now, the problem that I should say, the challenge that we have with our listeners is they know how to use Zoom a little bit. Some of them don't know how to share the screen or how to do the technical stuff. But what we're going to talk about is really creating connection, you
Mhm.
know, and making it feel personal. So when you're a content creator and you've been doing a lot of stuff. So what are some of the things you do to really get that connection through the video?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll be honest, I have been kind of doing status quo for with my webinars for several years now, and I just recently started thinking like how can I make these better? Because I think we've all kind of seen this, I started my business over a decade ago. And
Right.
when I first started, I was using GoToWebinar and I was hosting my meetings when like no I was hosting weekly live calls basically when no one else was really doing it.
Right.
And then you fast forward now over 10 years later, it seems like everybody is hosting webinars or virtual events or live calls or whatever, depending on what platform they choose. But COVID kind of changed everything because when everybody was at home, they were spending more time jumping on calls. And I don't know if people got burned out. I don't know if people got burned because they thought they were going to get delivered certain types of information or content. And then the person hosting the call didn't deliver. I don't know what happened, but we have seen a significant decrease in the number of people that are actually showing up for calls
Right.
nowadays. And so that got me thinking like, we need to start thinking about how we host these calls differently. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't made any changes yet. These are just kind of some of the things I've been thinking about, but
Right.
I haven't made changes. I don't know about you, but like, what have you been doing?
Well, so the thing is, when I like I when like I was saying, when I first started, I was doing all the makeup and I had to have the lighting right, and I was doing the virtual backgrounds. The thing with the virtual backgrounds is no one knew they even existed.
Yeah.
And you had to have a green screen. If you didn't have a green screen, whatever tech they have now, like I could turn it on now. I'm not going to because we're in Restream, but it's a lot better. So some of the things I did was the virtual background, but what I learned is there's a couple things. So like what you're really good at this, looking at the camera, because I
Mhm.
like looking. Here's a little pro tip that people don't know this, but us as humans, we like looking at ourselves. When we're looking at the Zoom screen, we're really looking at ourselves like, hey, less God and more shown, right? Let's talk more about me. But in Zoom, you can actually turn off your screen and then just focusing on the webcam and looking at the webcam, that really builds connection. But another thing is, and you're not so much into it as I am, but it's gesticulation. It's talking with your hands. It's
Yeah.
getting that the people to see. So when I make my recorded videos, I always have my hands up and I'm always doing this. And people will even comment, "What's with all the stupid handwork?" And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, you noticed." You
Well,
know?
I think for me, I personally don't like looking at myself while I'm doing it, especially because a lot of times there's a little bit of a lag, in the video. We don't necessarily have it on Restream, but if I'm watching it on the live stream, there'll be
Yeah.
a little bit of a lag and it kind of distracts me. So what
Oh,
I do is I actually open up a tab where I might have a few notes outlined for the call itself. So that way I can kind of stay on track and make sure I deliver what the message I wanted to share. So that helps me. So that way I am focused just simply on the camera. I do move my hands a lot typically, but I don't know, for whatever reason in your call, I don't do it as much.
well,
But when I do
yeah.
my own, I do. But
So
I think one thing I do want to point out is I don't think people care what you look like. I mean, I've done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of calls now over the years, and I have never had anyone say anything about how I looked.
yeah.
So I
No,
don't think they care. You know what I mean? Even if they could see your nose hairs, still to this day.
no, they don't. And what I say, and I say this to the people, and it drives me nuts. No one cares what you look about.
Look like.
First of all, no one cares about you, which is really harsh. But a lot of people go, "Hey, a little bit about me, and I'm going to tell you about me," and they go, and it's like people want to know how you're going to serve them, right? What's in it for them? But another thing is they don't care what you look like. They don't care visually how great your webcam is. It's if they can hear you.
Yes.
You have to knock it out of the ballpark with the audio. And we've had people on our stream, and also I've had other guests on podcasts where I had these two doctors when I first started. I have like 50,000 downloads, right? And when I
Mhm.
first started, I had these two doctors handing a laptop back and forth to each other,
Oh.
talking to the webcam on this, $240 laptop from, Fry's Electronics or something.
Mhm.
So the sound is pertinent. Everyone out there, and I got another little pro tip when it comes to the sound for the people listening, especially the newer people. Apple has really great microphones now, and I think the PCs have them are coming up with good audio. But this right here is like a $250-300 microphone, right? The arm's like $100. But then what they don't tell you, see, I look fancy with my fancy microphone. But then what they don't tell you is you have to buy this thing called the cloud, which is another $100. Then you got to buy these high-end cables, which are $50 each. So you end up spending almost, $800 on a microphone, right?
Yeah.
Now I got this microphone right here that I bought off Marketplace with the arm for $20. And
Nice.
this is a Yeti, and it has the little foam thing on top of it. I might have bought that for $5. I have about 4 Yetis anyhow. But the deal is, my point about the sound, a lot of people, new coaches or people doing podcasts, they're going to go invest in this high-end microphone. Well, here's what happens. This is a studio, like I'm a musician, so this would be used. I have a whole studio outside here, drums and uh, bass and guitars and like 3 keyboards and a whole studio, right?
Yeah.
The thing is, this microphone is made for that, for recording. But when this goes through the USB cord and then gets compressed through Zoom, I sound just as good as this $20 microphone.
Yeah. I have a Yeti.
Yeah.
You can't see it. It's off screen, but yeah.
So don't go out and invest a lot of money in audio, but have good audio.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think as far as connecting, I think the energy really matters. You can being intentional. I have a really bad habit that when I'm delivering a message, when I'm doing it at least by myself, this isn't really virtual events, but like if I'm just doing a live call, I tend to just kind of just jump on. I have an agenda. I know what I want to share, and I just kind of zoom through it really fast. Where if you're doing a virtual event where you have multiple speakers, right? You've got all different audiences kind of coming together. I would make sure that you're utilizing the polls, the Q&As, specifically taking time and breaking to ask questions to engage the audience. One of the features I really love that Zoom offers is they give you a chance to use those breakout rooms.
Yeah.
So that way you can break, if you have a large crowd, you can break people out into smaller little community or little groups so that they can get to know each other more intimately. I really like that feature as well, because when everybody's in the same room and they're all chatting, it can be really, you feel really disconnected with what's going on. You're just kind of there to watch and observe. You're not an actual active participant.
Yeah, that's really good. Again, we're talking about connection and engagement and the whole with them. What's in it for me? People love talking about themselves.
Yeah.
I had my last event. I brought some people up off the stage up into, and they're like, "Wow, I didn't know you're going to bring me up here," and they just felt really honored. And I was like, "I'm just trying to create content here. Like, I'm running out of things to say, but." The thing was, I made a PDF for the breakout rooms,
Mm-hmm.
so that in the breakout room, I go to some breakout rooms. They're like, "Okay, what are we doing here?" And then I immediately assign someone as the leader. Usually,
Yeah.
the person who says, "What are we going to do?" I'm like, "We have a saying." She, whatever. Let's not get politically on me. But he who asks does, right?
Yeah.
And so then, but I made a workbook for a little mastermind. So then I give those out for the breakout rooms and then have a facilitator in there. That way, the facilitator has a booklet that everyone else can have, and they can all like answer these powerful business building questions. So I
Yeah.
really like that. I really like where you're going with this because with the breakout rooms, I think this can be like the rest of this month and going into next year, just how, because your target audience, tell me a little bit about your target audience, just so the listeners know it's them.
Yeah. So I typically work with coaches, consultants, digital course creators, community, individuals who build personal communities, and professional services. So, I mean, we have a pretty big market span. They tend to overlap.
Yeah,
They might start off as coaching and then they dabble in services or
right.
whatever. So, yeah, that's my market. So when we're hosting live calls as coaches or consultants, or even service providers, like I think it's really important that one, you sharing your personal stories, but you're also giving your audience an opportunity for them to share theirs. So you can actually set the stage that, hey, this is an interactive, event or virtual event if you have multiple speakers. And I'm going to call you, I'm going to call you out. So be prepared. Like, let the audience know you want them to engage. You want them to take
Yeah,
the stage every once in a while. And so when you're when you're sharing, you can also call out your participants and give them an opportunity to share their stories and
Yeah,
their feedback.
that kind of, and the thing is, again, it's going to be the engagement. A lot of the people, like, they love having those breakout rooms, but also engaging, being pulled up on stage, even knowing that, even at the live events. I love when people give me a shout out, like at traffic and conversions, and they'll go, "Everyone knows Sean," and I'll be like, "They do? Like, why'd you say my name up there?" I don't really get. I love it when people do that.
Yeah.
And I'm not having a little story about that I won't tell, but I'll tell it really quick. I worked with a coach when I first started. I worked with a coach, and I said, "I want to be this guy." And he said, "Good luck with that." Well, then, like 7 years later, we're at traffic and conversions in the VIP, and he was in there, and everyone knew me and no one knew him. I kind of felt like I didn't say anything, but I was like, "Yeah, good luck with that." My luck was good. But it's also a lot of hard work, right?
Yeah.
Another thing, I just chat GBT stuff up here, but it's and I'm not gonna I want to talk about people like you just have the gift of gab, right? And so do I. But some people, some of the newer coaches, they just can't go off the cuff and start talking. So it's going to be that limited interactivity. So some of the things they could do, some people don't want to be on screen. So what they can do is they can share their screen and then just have their screen be shown and then turn off their video so they're not there. That relieves a lot of the anxiety in the newer coaches or even the seasoned coaches that they just don't like their picture or being out there.
Yeah.
And there's some other things with that is
But I would also say, because I don't particularly like having my face shown the whole time either, but for the longest time when I was doing my my webinars, they're not live calls. They're essentially the same thing, but I would actually just show my screen, and I will tell you that when you show your face, people connect with you more. So I would push anyone who's listening who feels anxious about showing your face, just know that's normal. I
yeah,
think most people don't really want to do that, but it really does make a huge difference in the way that you connect with your audience. So
absolutely.
even though you can still share your screen, but you can have that little bubble, depending on which platform you use is how it displays.
Right.
But it's important that we
And
really
another thing
focus.
about that is it's branding who you are. And I was going to say something you were saying about showing your um another thing is that if you're a newer coach or consultant, author, whatever, or you're just new, if even if you're seasoned but you're new to the live stream or the summits, get people that love, trust, and adore you. Just get your
Yeah.
close family friends, get your girlfriends and get some crumpets and some tea. Does tea go with crumpets? I'm not that guy that knows. And just say, hey, we're gonna have a discussion. I love what Roland Frazier does with us is everyone, I don't drink, but he'll have a happy hour.
Yeah.
This guy has that $3,800 bottle of wine, and he'll take little sips of it, and he'll be like, and that's his whole authority thing, right? Meanwhile, I got like Mad Dog 2020, or some like
Back in the
Brass
day.
Monkey or something. But then we're all just sipping, and I would sip my ginger ale, right? Put it in a glass, and we would just sit there and we would just discuss business and just challenges and things, and it was very casual. So the newer people, you could do that with your friends, and it's just like going out for tacos,
Yeah, I actually have a live call scheduled January. Oh, I have to check. I think it's January 8th.
Yeah,
I'm doing a live panel discussion on AI, right?
yeah.
And so I'm inviting. I think I have 4.
Did you want me to be on that?
I think I have enough. I don't want too many
Okay.
people because it's going to get crazy.
Here's the reason I asked is
But I would normally. Yeah.
I'm not the best person to be on that because I use AI very not much, right?
Yeah.
Like I use it to write content or I'll ask a question such as what I asked today, but I don't like make the images or get all detailed or do all that stuff. I've
Well, it's more of an introduction to, there are folks out there that still are resistant and haven't embraced AI.
yeah,
And the thing is it's not going away. So we need to have real conversations about how do we leverage this in our business as entrepreneurs, not as just as marketers. Obviously, marketers, we embraced it. For the most part, most of us embraced it pretty quickly because it allowed us to scale our business. But it's a different kind of conversation. But and by the way, it is on January 15th. So
right.
I've got some panel experts. These are individuals that actually work with AI every single day in their business. So yeah. But anyways, we kind of went off on a tangent.
No,
But
that's fine.
the whole point that I was trying to make is, there's lots of different ways to host live events. It doesn't necessarily just have to be what we're seeing here today, which is, a conversation piece. You can do panel discussions, like anything that you've seen live in person, you could mimic in a
Yeah.
virtual, environment.
Yeah, so let's talk about a few of those. So this is how I use AI. I'm going to say, what are the top 5 uh, strategies for virtual events? And I'm using a totally wrong word, so it's going to be, but so you can have a summit, you can have the talking heads, you could have one to many, or you can have many to many.
Yep.
So, what works best for you? I'm speaking today. I don't know if you know that or not. Here's the worst part of it. I can't even promote it right now. I spent $5,000 to speak on this stage, and I don't even know. I don't even know the name of the event
Oh, geez.
or the website. I really don't care. To tell you the truth. All I want is my return on my investment. Okay, I shouldn't have said that because this is being live streamed. But the deal is, what are some things that you have found that work best? You're doing a summit coming up. Let's talk about that. What are your
Well,
strategies?
mine isn't a summit. It's just a panel discussion,
Okay, panel.
actually. But I've helped many clients host virtual summits. I myself have not actually hosted a virtual summit. That is on the agenda for 2025.
Okay.
Uh, I've always been kind of more of the behind the scenes. I set everything up. I do the email campaigns, the Facebook ads, the funnels, all that stuff. That's been my role. And so just in the last several months, I'm stepping into a different role in my business, and I've actually moved away from my agency. And
Yeah.
so I'm actually now being the one who's hosting these kinds of events. So I think a couple of things that come to mind when it doesn't matter what kind of an event you're hosting, you need to make sure that the energy is high. And if you're the primary person that's speaking at the event, like a webinar or a live call, or even if you're emceeing your own virtual event, you need to make sure that you have high energy, because that kind of sets the tone for the entire event.
Yeah.
Right. So, and maybe like for me, I have high energy when I'm talking about a specific topic. I don't consider myself a good person to do emceeing. We have a friend, Jade Olivia. She's freaking phenomenal, as you know.
Oh, what do
She's
you? So
just,
what's her nickname? Everyone gives her a nickname.
I don't know. I don't know what
I
I
call her
told
the
Jade.
firecracker.
Oh, the firecracker. Oh yeah,
Jade
she's
the fire,
definitely a firecracker.
Jade the firecracker Olivia. She's great. Go to jadeolivia.co to check her out.
Yeah, she just is such a hype girl, right?
Yeah.
She's so great at speaking off the cuff. She has high energy. She elevates the entire group. So
She's
you
the
need
petite.
someone like that, even if that's not you.
Yeah, she's the petite Flavor Flay.
Yeah, right.
Gotta be old to know who that guy is. But anyhow, yeah, but also it's the energy. So like you have good energy right now, and my energy, I remember being in a sales class, and they're like, you need great energy. So I thought I had to go over the top, being just a spaz. And then they're like, we're gonna bring in our top closer into the room, and she's like, hey everybody, yeah, so you really need to have really great energy on your call. I'm like, you sound like a dud, but
Yeah.
it was her energy, whatever she was doing, people listened to it. So that brings us to authenticity. So we had a guy again, and I'm bringing up Roland a couple times here, but it just happens to be he had one of his events. So we're all investors, and in this I'm okay, I'm gonna say it, but we're in a small room. We're in somewhere, I don't know where, if you know where Rancho Santa Fe is in San Diego. They call it the ranch, but we're somewhere in there. And it's only about 45 of us in there. Well, the guy who was one of the speakers, he's used to speaking in front of thousands of people. So he's like, so you got to have great energy and be authentic. And this is how you get people to opt into your site. It's so, and but he's doing that in a room full of 45 people. And
Yeah.
he's telling us to be authentic. And we're like all looking at each other like, dude, just talk to us. Right.
Right.
So
You got to match the energy of the room.
right, exactly. Match the energy of the room and know your audience, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I spoke one time. A lot of people know I'm in recovery, and it took me not a long time, but it took me a while to speak the way I speak, because when I got sober, I was like, "Yo, G, you know what I'm saying? For I'm kicking it with my homeboys. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?" And one time, I was talking to a whole room of gangsters. And I said, if you would have heard me in my early sobriety, I sounded stupid. I was like, yo, G, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, oh my God, like that was not for the audience that I was in right then, because
Right.
that's who they were. So I was
Yeah.
mocking them. It's funny in this other group of the professionals, but it's not funny. So we all fall into that.
Mhm.
But so with authenticity and energy, how do you bring those two together to where, how do you know if you're have the right energy or not?
Well, I mean, obviously you're going to know based on people's attendance, like are people showing up to your events? Are they staying on your events? What is the feedback from the participants of the event? Those kinds of things. I say this because I've been in my previous career before I was in marketing, I worked in personal finance. And in that industry, we had all kinds of people like that were building successful businesses. And every person who took the stage had a different kind of personality. There were some that were like off the charts, energy and contagious. And then there was some that were just pretty kind of level, energy kind of people. And it was one thing that I learned in my time there was that you can lead no matter what kind of person you are. Like if you're the type of person that doesn't have a lot of energy, that you're just kind of even keel, you just kind of show up, you deliver you deliver a great keynote or presentation or information, people will follow that. Like you will attract your own audience. Specifically when we're talking about virtual events, if you are inviting on several different speakers and they're not all coming from the same space in terms of their energy, it can have an effect on the crowd. Because if you have one that's really high, one that's really low, now the audience is going to start playing comparison, right? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, I was at a concert. It's funny.
Yeah.
Do you know who the Cult is?
Yeah.
I can't even remember what songs they play, but I was at a concert, and it was Public Enemy, once again, Flavor Flav, the hype man of the world. Like no
Right.
one's better than him. The whole, like probably about 8,000 people were jumping up and down. And then they walked off stage and the Cult came on stage and they're like, fire woman. And like everyone's like leaving, right?
Yeah, it's because
Because
the
the energy.
energy doesn't match the crowd. So you need to be just conscientious of who did you invite? What kind of energy do they bring? Is all of the speakers at the event kind of bringing the same type of energy? I think about the events that I go to in the tech space. They're not hype people.
Yeah,
They're not like pump their fists, dance
right.
around kind of people. And I've seen some events where they try to incorporate that because they want to raise the energy of the room, but that's not who's in the crowd. Those types of people do not
Right.
do that. You go to a Brendan Burchard event or, a Tony Robbins event, they're like night and day different. So just make sure that you're conscientious of who your audience
Oh,
is, who your
really?
speakers are, and make sure you match that energy.
I've never been to a Brendan Bouchard event.
Yeah, I've not been one live, but I've seen it recorded.
Yeah.
And yeah, he does a pretty decent job pumping up his crowd. And that's great for his crowd. But then you bring in someone else who isn't like that.
Right.
Now there's going to be a comparison, and it's not fair to the other speakers if they're not matching the same energy. So just I
Yeah.
don't do that.
Yeah. When I go to an Anthony Robbins, I remember the first time he said a cuss word. I'm like, did he just say a cuss word?
Yeah.
I think Gary Vee started it all. He was the OG potty mouth,
Yeah.
and then everybody else started doing it. But you know how people go, okay, now massage the person on your right shoulders. I'm like,
Yeah.
man,
No.
but you're in the middle of the audience, so you can't like have an episode. I guess you could, but you just have to kind of go along with it. Those things kind of bug me.
Yeah.
But that's just how those events are. The other thing when it comes to energy and the highs and the low, and is the authenticity. Like I could not be a Jade Olivia. There's no way. I
Yeah,
could
I'm not
try
either.
to do it, right? But everybody would know that's no shown. This is exactly I would go out there and I'd try to be Jade Olivia. This is a snippet. Let's see what time it is. 9:33. Make note of this one. This is exactly what people would say after I got off the stage. They'd say, Shone, don't ever do that again, right? Because Jade is naturally effervescent, right? She's just so bubbly and excited, and whatever is within her, it comes out in the essence of drawing it out of the other person, right?
Yep.
So I don't have that, and I was just thinking about this morning. I'm very active in helping young people get off drugs, and there's certain people that they don't like my energy, and I'm like, my energy is not for you. It's for the young people to be excited about getting off drugs.
Yeah.
It's not for that old lady that knits that, it's not for them, right?
Right.
You just go knit somewhere.
Well,
But
and like I said, Jade is really good at the MC part. I mean, she's really good at training in that too. I've actually worked with Jade
yeah,
and brought her into my community to help train my community members. But Jade's a great MC. She just does a phenomenal job at an MC. I'm not a good MC, but I do bring the energy when I'm training, when
right.
I'm bringing my message. So, she's matching my energy. So she's a great person to work with. And I am bringing her up because I'm actually interviewing her the first part of next year. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that's the key. I think they probably got the point on that. But I think other things that they can do in terms of uh, hosting an event that people are excited to attend. I think we need to think outside the box. We talked about this a few weeks ago about the holidays and doing holiday promotions. But I think, right now it's Christmas time and a lot of people are having those ugly sweater, get-togethers and things like that. It's become a thing. But I think those kinds of things, those themes can be actually brought in throughout all the other parts of the year. We don't have to just reserve that fun atmosphere for the holidays. You can do it in January and February and March. Find things that you can incorporate into your events that bring some fun components to it too. I think people would really enjoy that.
Yeah.
Obviously, I have not tested this theory, but I think they would.
Yeah, we do like I was in the Christian singles like 20 years ago. And I'm not trying to bring all this spiritual and religious stuff. I'm just talking about me. But we did a thing where we blew up a bunch of balloons because we were trying to make it exciting, and everybody had to go around the room stomping on balloons, popping them. And
Yeah.
I was like, what does that have to do with anything? Everyone was cracking up at the end of the thing and like smiling and giggling and talking with each other. So it really whatever like tension was in the room was completely eliminated with a simple little exercise,
Yeah,
right?
it's a fun little icebreaker. I think that we should incorporate more of those in our events.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing is Well, that's something that we could talk about is in a virtual event. Uh, the challenges between a live and a virtual, of course, is you can't touch the person or really interact with the person next to you. So, how can you break the ice with the audience to get the audience? One of the things is with the chat, right? Now, I have a problem with the chat. I turn it off at my events because what I found, I've had a couple people come in that were, I thought, well, they came in, I let them have access to my Infusionsoft and they stole my list, which
Mhm.
is kind of like a given when you let people come in and do that. Um, but then they'll also go in the chat and try to like get clients. And you're
Oh,
like, okay, well, I'm the one who curated all this, and now you're in there, and it's supposed to be these people are supposed to know me, and now you're taking them,
well, I
so
would
it's
just
like,
boot them out. I wouldn't shut off chat personally. I would, because you want the group
well,
to
that's
kind
what
of,
I'm saying.
yeah. But I would boot that person out for sure.
Well, yeah, so um I don't I don't the other thing is, since of what the automated marketing summit is, it's so we've had, it was going really great, and then everything broke, and then it went all weird and sideways, and I wasn't as investing as much time into it. But we were getting like 50 to 75 people in that event, which is a lot.
Hmm.
And and the thing is that it's a lot of hard work to get people to get butts and seats. If there was a formula for getting butts and seats, um, I don't think there is. It's just you just have to do a lot of outreach, however you do it. And
I think the
so
quality of your speakers matter. If
yeah,
you are not delivering on your promise of the event, regardless of what it is, if it's a webinar or a summit,
yeah,
if you're not delivering and your speakers aren't delivering, people aren't going to show up the next time around.
yeah,
If they know that you are consistently delivering what you said that you would, they're more likely to become fans and followers.
yeah. The one of the things, and what we're really doing with the automated marketing summit is it's all SaaS now. It's like if you own Memberium, if you own Fix Your Funnel, if you own a SaaS, the super nerds want to know that. Like my audience wants to know how to use this at a geek level, but they don't want to hear about, Chat GBT or what are those other things that they just don't want to hear because they're already doing it,
Yeah,
right?
and see my audience, they don't get excited about tools.
Yeah,
They'll use the tools as
yeah,
you introduce them, but that's not what excites them. They don't get out of bed every day going, "Ooh, how can I use ManyChat today?"
yeah.
That's not their thing.
Yeah, we had to flip the switch on ours because again, they're super nerds and they want you can talk about, DNS and HTML and A records, and text records and DKIM and SPIF and all that stuff. But now we're just getting off course here. Um, one of the other things is getting the people. So I'm speaking at an event today. I usually convert half the room. So I'm speaking to a bigger audience today. Last time I spoke in front of 200 people. I had just under 100 people opt in. So it was 97. And I had about 87 people set appointments.
Mhm.
All right. Now, what I didn't do was who showed up, who didn't show up, and who converted. Like, I got to do that now. It's like knowing your numbers type stuff, but it was my first time. I was like, I didn't expect my calendar to explode. Like, I literally got to delete my calendar for the next 6 weeks
Yeah.
just because it's going to fill up, right? Um, but the reason I bring that up is it's having that. I was looking at seamless technical um, execution, but it's more like converting people with the virtual event. What are some ways let's say your thing coming up? how are you going to convert people in either into a calendar or into a client?
So personally, for me, this is the first time I'm hosting this panel discussion, and the way that I kind of foresee it happening is, I'm basically lifting up my panelists and giving them an opportunity to share their expertise with my audience, because my audience is very resistant to AI, and so I want them to hear from different people's perspective on how to utilize this tool. And so I'm giving them an opportunity to capture leads so they can offer something for free in
Yeah.
exchange, obviously, for people's emails.
Yeah.
But so my focus is not for myself
Yeah.
on that particular event.
And so the thing is that like my whole thing is capturing that. Like I think I have the best funnel in the whole wide world because I made it, but everyone's going to feel that way. But literally, this is like, people should take note on what I'm about to say. They can go to the ultimate, not the, but just ultimateleadfollowup.com. And there's a video of me explaining what I'm about to explain here. But I tell people, so when you talk from the stage, what you say from the stage has to match the website. So you can't say brown corduroy jeans and then have white socks on your website. People are going to go, what the heck? Right? So what I say from the stage is I talk about the ultimate lead follow-up. And then the video is, hey, welcome to the ultimate lead follow-up. But what I say from the stage is, go to there and you're going to get the free book. Now, once you get the free book, you're going to have the opportunity to set an appointment. When you set the appointment, you're going to get $2,500 worth of free video, my video training series of the ultimate lead follow-up. That's all free just for setting the appointment. But here's the best part.
Nice.
When you show up to the appointment, I'm going to give you all the content.
Yeah.
That's why people download the book, set the appointment, and then once the appointment's set, I don't care about anything else now except them showing up.
Yeah.
And
So there's an incentive for them to show up, aside from the call as well. Obviously.
Right. And then the reminders are, remember, you're going to get all of the content, right, when you show up to the call. So then they're like, well, I want that content. Then when they show up to the call, they're usually like, yeah, and then I got to weed out the diamonds from the diamonds. So it's really super cool on having those conversions when you speak from the stage. Some other things with the virtual events, just from my experience when I go to them personally, there's some that I go to that they have it every week, and some of them they peter out, right? Like they start and then they peter out. And what I found are the events that people go to every week that have like 63 people a week. They're the ones where they let everyone get up to the front, raise their hand, and then share.
Right.
Every single one. And if you don't let your audience interact, we had it where we were doing it, but we were just two talking heads, and people would show up and they'd look and then they would leave. They'd go, oh, these guys again, right? Yeah. So so that interactive part is your thing. Are you going to have people, are you going to bring them up on stage and have Q&A and
in the audience themselves?
Yeah.
I don't have any plans for it yet, but over the course of next year, I'm going to start to incorporate some new things and try some new things out. But this first one is just a panel discussion.
What about,
which is completely new for me because I've never done a panel discussion.
Yeah. What about the surveys? Are you going to do a survey in the middle?
I might. I don't know.
Well,
I don't have any plans. I'm just now I'm just now lining up my speakers for next year. Okay. So
we're exploring that right now.
Yeah.
Some of the things is what I found also with the surveys, so the surveys are really kind of cool, but it's doing it at the right time. I've had people, and I can't go just off of me. You got to really like get your numbers. If you do a survey, how many people fill it out? How many people leave during the survey? But I've had people do the surveys in between speakers, and I'm kind of like, well, I'm not going to do that. It's asking me stuff that I've been asked 1,000 times. But for the newer people, they're like, oh yeah, and they want to really participate in those. So it's really an interesting thing of just having the finesse on how to interact, when to interact, what to say, what questions to ask to get people to fill out the surveys.
Yeah, I prefer to do polls. Like
So that's
last
what I
year
meant,
I did
polls.
polls in some of my events, my live events that I was
Yeah,
hosting. The polls are really great because I can be sharing and then stop and say, "Hey, I would really love your feedback." And then they can very quickly, just by a click of a button, provide that feedback based on
right,
what they just consumed, right?
right,
What they were just part of. When surveys tend to be like, if I'm hosting a 3-hour virtual event, at the end of 3 hours, what'd you think? Well, there's different, temperature checks that you should be taking throughout the course of the event, because at the end of the event, they might feel exhausted, maybe because they're feeling overwhelmed. It was a lot of information, and that's their left impression. Where if had you checked in with them in the first hour, that maybe their energy would have been high and their feedback would have been different. So I think it's important to call it a survey, call it a poll. I think it's kind of the same thing, but
yeah.
just delivered a little bit differently.
Yeah, and now asking maybe the one-time thing, but when it gets like when they're asking like 6 questions, right around the 6th question, I'm right around the 4th question, I'm like, "Okay." And again, I'm just talking about me. Other people may be extremely excited. They might wanna fill out 20 questions, you know? But there's, like I said, there's a finesse to it. And doing those polls, as you're saying, the good news is the data that you get from those, especially if you're a new coach and you run a poll. And one of my favorite questions that I like to ask, and what I would do is I would do this maybe the day after or 2 days after the summit, is send something out, and it's be, if you could change one thing about my event, what would that be?
Yeah.
And people are going to go, "Oh, yeah, this sucked when you did that." And people love telling you how much you suck, right? But what happens is you're like, "Oh, wow, I have 10 people saying," I'll give you an event. There's so many times that I feel that I shouldn't say something, but then I say it anyhow. I went to an event with a client of mine, um, and at the event, there was a food truck, but there's one food truck. So the whole break was people standing in line. You
Mm.
couldn't network. You could only network with the person you were standing to. So the very first people at the food line, they were all networking, right? But for some reason, I don't know why I did this. I stood in the line for 45 minutes.
Mm.
I had interesting people I was talking to, but then by the time I got my food, I was like, "Oh man," like time flew. I was like, "I didn't even get to network at this thing," right? So getting that feedback saying, "Hey, don't do that," or if you do that, like have it in sections where people, or have them order and bring the food into them, having them eat at the table. So it's just little feedback. Okay, enough about that.
Yeah.
That went off the rails.
Yeah.
Well, we got about 10 minutes left. What are some of the most important things you think people need to know about virtual events?
Oh, that's a broad statement. Let's see. I think, well, we talked about creating interactive moments, allowing for polls, Q&A, breakout rooms. If you're a coach, I think it's a great opportunity for you to actually coach your participants. Like if you're teaching on a concept, give them some space to actually work on that, and then coach them on it. So you can call out someone who's on a call and say, "Hey, what did you come up with? Let's walk through that together." So that, I think those are good opportunities. And we talked about, the importance of sharing personal stories, but also not only just sharing your personal story, allow your audience to raise their hand and share theirs.
Yeah,
Um, One thing you mentioned that wasn't very like highlighted was use people's names often. So when you're on your call, you'll have people who are fans and followers. Uh, and that's a great opportunity for you to call out that individual and say, "Hey," like I have a guy who's in my community, TJ. He's on all my calls. I love him. He's a great guy. He's just a fan, and he supports me in everything I do, and he's on all my calls. So when I do my live calls, I say, "Hey TJ, how are you? It's great to see you."
Yeah,
So
shout out.
I'll make it a point to call out those fans and followers. I have Courtney, who's another fan and follower too. I think that's the reason, probably a big reason why they become fans, is because you
Yeah,
acknowledge that they're there. They're
yeah.
just not part of the masses. You know what I mean?
I think that I agree with that. Some of the things is like that shout out. The most important thing, of course, what I'm going to say is have a good microphone. Don't sound like this. This is a high-end microphone. The reason you can't hear me is this microphone is made to like I could have a dog barking on the other side of this right in my face and you wouldn't hear it. But
Yeah,
don't go out and invest in just get something simple. Get a Yeti. They're on marketplace all over the place. $20, $40, right? And the engagement, the connection, the heart-to-heart feel. When you shout someone out, other people, it's not just that you're connecting with that person. There's other people that are like, oh, I hope she shouts me out. I hope she says my name. And then
absolutely.
when you get into the breakout rooms and you get to know people, one of the things Suzanne Evans does is she goes into all the breakout rooms. Hey, everybody, it's me. And
Yeah.
and she's very interruptive. It's not a bad thing. I kind of feel like, well, I was in the middle of a sentence there, and I'm very important. You just broke, but she's branding herself in all the breakout rooms, and hey, just a little bit about me, and then she'll see someone she knows, she'll give them a shout out, and then she'll do the next one. So it's really engaging and it's heartwarming, and
And it should be authentic, by the way, just
oh
bring that
yeah,
up,
yeah,
obviously. But
she's she's very authentic. Like she's high energy. She's like
on the
it's
yeah,
like she drank 6 Red Bulls before every event. She
yeah,
just
yeah, that's her energy.
yeah
I think another thing to bring up on the breakout session is making sure that you're thoughtful about how, like, the discussions that are taking place in those breakouts. Make sure that you have a facilitator. It could
yeah
be someone on your team, or it could be a fan. You could actually ask a fan to say, "Hey, would you mind facilitating it?" A lot of people want to help you succeed. So
yeah
you can give them that role, which is obviously beneficial to you. So if you're a solopreneur and you don't have a team, you can don't be afraid to ask your fans to do that. And then give them an outline, like have them do an icebreaker, have them ask specific questions, have them facilitate the conversation in those breakouts. Otherwise, what will end up happening is you're going to have a person on there who's super talky, comes on and kind of dominates the whole space,
right.
and no one else gets an opportunity to share.
I
So
I
that's
call
really
them
important.
I call them vampires, and
Mhm.
the deal with the vampire, like, you might wanna have a timer in there, but also there's 2 things with a facilitator. The facilitator needs to know how to handle a vampire. I, for one, am like, "Okay, I'll just interrupt 'em. Okay, thank you, that was great. I learned a lot about you. I'll do that." And some people will giggle, but it's like saying, "Yeah, you're the." But here's the worst part: is when you have a facilitator that is the vampire, and you
Yeah.
never know who they are.
Well,
And
don't choose one of those.
I've had them where they're like, "Oh, now I have an audience." Well, thank you, Sean, for bringing me the audience so I can talk about me. And then everyone in the breakout room is like, "This person is supposed to make sure this doesn't happen," and they're doing it. So,
Yeah.
just make sure you vet them, but you never know. And sometimes people just overshare and overspeak.
Yeah,
Sometimes,
but if you I think that most people really do a pretty decent job of holding to the rules that you've set, but if you
yeah,
have no rules, they're just gonna
yeah,
show up and do their thing. So if you say, "Hey, there's 6 of you in this breakout. We've got 15 minutes." So that means each of you will have 2 minutes to share. And
yeah,
these are the 3 specific things I want you to share on. Now,
exactly.
people will most of the time people will respect that.
And that's true. And one of the things about that, which I find frustrating, is when they do that, and then no one, and then I always assume, oh, someone's going to write down those 3 things. So then now I have 7 people in a breakout room, and I'm like, who wrote down the 3 things? And they're like, we thought you were going to do it, Sean. And I'm like, well, I didn't. Now
Yeah,
what?
I'm a
So
visual person. I always have slides.
yeah, but when you
Always.
go in the breakout room, it goes away, right?
No, you can share a slide.
in a
Yeah, you're sharing it with the
no. I'm
facilitator.
saying if you do breakout rooms and the facilitator doesn't have those,
No,
or
you share it with the facilitator ahead of time,
I
though.
know
That's
that's what
part
I'm
of the
saying.
yeah.
Or you could say take a snapshot. A lot of people know how to do a print screen or a snapshot, and then go to the breakout room. And then people. So if I take a snapshot, then I can put on. I have multiple screens. Then I can know what they are. So there are other ways of letting people know. These are the three things that we're going to talk about. Take a snapshot of this, or have the facilitator have it. If there is no facilitator, just make sure that someone and I, like I said, sometimes I just assign someone. The first, like I said, he who asks does. So when someone says, well, who's going to lead this, I'm like, you are. And
Yeah.
which I'm being the leader by saying that.
Yeah. Well, I would tell you, I have been in breakout rooms where there was no facilitator or no one that was called out to lead the group, and
Yeah.
everybody's just sitting there going, "Who wants to do it?" And nobody wants to step on anyone else's toes, so you waste a lot of time.
Yeah.
I was on a call last year that was specifically just like that. We're all sitting there going, "Who's going to speak first, and who's going to organize this thing?"
Oh
So
yeah.
I would suggest don't do that.
Yeah, I take the horse by the reins every time. But I've been there like that since I was a little boy, even in church camp. You know, the 7 weeks of summer that your parents get rid of you. And not 7 weeks, 7 days. I wish it was 7 weeks.
I
But
grew up in
anyhow,
foster care. I didn't go to no camp.
oh yeah. Well, my parents would send us away, and it'd always be like, what are we gonna do? And I'd be like, oh, well, we can go hiking. Like I was always the guy. So I'm kind of, it kind of can make people nervous and make people, if you're gonna do that, just get ready for the repercussions. That's what I was told.
Yeah.
So
I think
we're at the top of the hour. I have my coaching call coming
Oh,
up.
yeah, you're good.
This is a big day for me. I'm speaking at my event. Maybe I'll blast it out to my list, but probably not. I don't even know that. Oh, you know what? They texted me right here. Let me see if I can give a shout out real quick. They said, if you're not at the maybe I got an email on it. It's called the ISL. If you're not already on the main stage for ISL, you're late. I don't know what that means. But I have the Zoom link, and it might be for me as a speaker. So I can't really give it a shout out. But either way, I'll be speaking today. Hope to see you guys there.
Awesome. Have a great event.
Okay, thanks, Misty.
All right, see you later.
And
Yep.
next week is just me, right?
Yeah, I won't be on from now till the end of the year personally.
Okay, all right.
All right, see you
Okay.
later. Bye.